Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and we're going to take a look at the Nubia Z20. This is a dual screen smartphone that's a little bit different. So this comes in at $549 and comes in two options, blue and black. So let's go ahead and open it up. So we'll take the top off here. And inside, we've got some literature right on top. We've got a SIM card removal tool. Let's see what we've got in here. So it looks like we get a case for the back. And this is a TPU case. It's clear, has a little bit of texture to it. And then it looks like we have a screen protector that we can apply if we'd like to as well. Then we've got some documentation here. It's got a quick starter guide, as well as a warranty card. So let's set this aside and take a look at what else is in the box. So here is the phone itself. And this is quite a lot of phone for the price. Let's set it aside for a moment and see what else we've got. So we've got a separate box here. And then we've got a USB charger. So you'll see this is the Nubia adapter with USB-A on the back. And then what else do we have in here? I think we open it on this side, and then we get two adapters. We've got a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, as well as USB-A to USB-C. So let's set this aside and take a closer look at the phone itself. I've heard a lot about this phone, and I think it should be pretty interesting. Now down here at the bottom, it tells me that I've got a screen protector pre-installed that should be highly transparent and durable. Let's take the wrapper off. So as you can see, this is the black color I talked about. So there's black and then there's a blue color as well. This has 8 gigabytes of RAM inside, along with 128 gigabytes of storage for $549, like I said earlier. It's covered in Gorilla Glass 5, both front and back, and we'll talk about the displays in a moment. But internally, this actually has a pretty good processor. In fact, it has one of the best processors, if not the best, Snapdragon 855 Plus with an Adreno 640 GPU. It has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery and has 3 cameras on the back. And the cameras are 48 megapixel. It's an f1.7 Sony sensor with optical image stabilization. Then there's an ultra-wide 16 megapixel f2.2, along with a telephoto 8 megapixel f2.4. And it can record 8K video at 15 frames per second in 10-bit, which is pretty impressive, but I'm not sure you would want 15 frames per second. Now let's look around the phone and then we'll turn it on. So on this side, we have a volume button here. We have our power button. Then on the bottom, it looks like we have a speaker and a microphone with a USB-C in the middle. And then on this side, it looks like we have another button here, as well as our SIM tray. And then on the top, we have a microphone again. Let's pop the SIM tray out and see what we have inside. So it looks like we have dual SIM cards in here. So if you want to use a couple different SIM cards, you can do that. And let's go ahead and turn it on. Now I'm holding this button here, and you'll see it says Nubia smartphone powered by Android. And that's kind of interesting. It says be yourself, and then it has an introduction with a privacy policy. And you have to scroll to the bottom and say you've read it and then hit continue. Now, I'll set this up in just a moment, but the front-facing display is 6.42 inches at 2340 by 1080 with 401 pixels per inch. On the back, I don't see anything yet, but we'll see that in just a moment, I think. And you can turn it on or off using either button on the side. So if I push the left side or the right side, they do the exact same thing. So that's pretty nice. I haven't seen that before. Let's go ahead and hit start. It says connect to a mobile network. I won't put my SIM card in just now. Let's go ahead and connect to Wi-Fi. Now, as I was typing in my password for the Wi-Fi network, you could feel it vibrate with haptic feedback, but it wasn't quite as good as, say, a Pixel 4 XL, for example. It didn't vibrate as much, so it's okay, but it's not as nice as that. I won't copy any data for now. And it says checking info. I'll skip signing in for now. I'll do all of that later. We'll accept these terms. And then it says, please select the input fingerprint. So apparently you can set up your fingerprint on either side. I'll select the right. We'll hit next. I'll put in a pin. I wouldn't ever use 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just using it for this demonstration. It says touch the sensor. So it says lift finger, touch again. So it's not quite as sensitive as I had hoped. So normally when I'm just pushing my finger down, moving it around, if you put it down in the same spot, it makes you do it again. There we go. We'll hit next. And it says adding finishing touches. It wants me to consent to location use. I'll just hit next. So now we're at the home screen, and if I hit this button, it says switch display screen. We'll hit OK, and we should have the display on the back. Now it's noticeably more dim or not as easy to see, but this is a 5.1 inch 1520 by 720 display with 330 pixels per inch. So you still can't see the pixels, but it's definitely not as bright as the other. So I'll say don't remind me, and then we'll flip. So you can easily flip the display if you want to, turn it off. We'll try the fingerprint sensor, and it's back on. So it actually works pretty quickly as far as that goes. Now let's take a look at the version of Android that you get with this. And you'll see it's Android 9, so you're not getting the latest. I don't know how they are as far as updates are concerned, but this should have some incredible specs. So if we want to flip this over, we can use this display, and the back display, well, we're in the actual camera. We'll hit agree, and it's kind of interesting to be able to see yourself through the cameras on the back. That's something I think would be pretty useful as far as video is concerned. So then you could record yourself with the best camera instead of having to use the front-facing camera that's typically not as good as the rear camera. And you'll see we don't really have a front-facing camera here. They've just put all three on the back, which makes a lot of sense. So this is something that I think is really interesting and definitely different, and will be very helpful for those that want to record videos, whether that be of themselves or anyone else. This just makes it that much easier to take a selfie that's maybe a little bit better than you see on anything else. I wouldn't say the display is amazing. In fact, you can see the overhead camera there. The display is not amazing, but it's pretty interesting to see that we have a little display on the back, and then we just rotate it around and we can use it on the front. Now, if we go into the camera, we've got a bunch of different options here as far as grid and all sorts of things, but let's see. We'll turn off the Nubia watermark. Let's go back to camera settings. Maybe we'll go to video. We'll see what we've got. We can record in 4K 60 if we'd like. And then you can record in H.264 or H.265 or HDR10 if you'd like to for HDR content. So this is a really interesting phone with a very large battery for a pretty reasonable price. Now, my only concern would be the updates. And let's see how this fingerprint sensor works. It's actually pretty quick. So if I push down, let's turn it on over here. It's not going to recognize me. Push down on this side. Let's see if it works now. And it looks like it's not going to work that time. But if I turn it off here, turn it back on, it's nice and quick. So it's actually not bad. It just takes a second to get used to, and it works pretty well overall. Now you've got your typical Google apps here, and then you've got your app drawer with whatever you want to keep in it. It looks very familiar as far as stock Android, but instead everything is square. And you probably have some options to change that as well. Now, the other thing it has is pressure-sensitive gesture controls. So I can squeeze it, and you'll see it shrinks the phone down or shrinks the screen down so I can easily reach it. If I just squeeze it, it actually works pretty well. So that's pretty nice. I actually like that. I'll turn that to the Google Assistant, and it will be just like using a Pixel phone. And speaking of a Pixel phone, let me show you for a size comparison. So here's the Pixel 4 XL. If I rotate it around, it gives you an idea of the size as far as the thickness and everything else. It feels very, very nice. In fact, in the hand, it feels very similar to a Galaxy S10, for example. The bezels are nice and thin, and you'll see the screen rolls over the side just a little bit. But overall, I think it's pretty nice. Let's take a look at a couple of the options that we have here. Now, as I said, you'll see it says pressure border, and then long grip, super screenshot, short holding pressure, one-handed mode. You can adjust the pressure level. So that's something I haven't seen mentioned elsewhere. And then you've got an also always on display. You've got super eye care for your secondary display. So it's kind of a yellow look to it so it doesn't harm your eyes as much at night. And then it's a very slippery phone, by the way. And then that's about it. As far as brightness goes, well, we're only at 35% brightness. We can turn it up. That's pretty bright. I don't know if I'd say it's as bright as, say, the newest iPhones or S10 Plus, but overall, I think it's pretty nice. It's as close to stock Android as I've seen. Let me take a quick photo and see what it looks like. Now let's take a photo here. And it's nice and fast. Doesn't look bad at all. The color is pretty accurate too. So it's hard to say how it would be at night, but in general, for the price, it's half the price of that Pixel 4 XL. So you're getting a lot here for your money. And even if you broke this, you could just buy another one and you'd have the same thing. Of course, there's no headphone jack, but then you've got that secondary display. You can type on it, do whatever you want. You've got the full operating system on the back, although it is a little bit hard to see. We can turn it up a little bit. So that's full brightness. It looks okay. It definitely is not an accurate display, but the front display looks great. Now, just like other Nubia phones, we've got the game space, and game space is pretty interesting and fairly helpful if you like to see statistics about your processor and your GPU. So you'll see I have a few games installed here. And for example, if I go into this game and then I pull in from the right, we've got a bunch of information here. So we've got the GPU speed, the CPU speed, and the actual temperature. And then we have a couple different modes here as well to block messages and things like that. We can screen capture, and it just works really well. It's a nice little addition, and it can ramp up the processor and things like that to get the best performance out of these games. Now, I thought I'd try a little bit of PUBG on this phone to see how it handles it. And as you can see, if I go to the graphics mode here, we're on HDR and extreme. So it's handling it pretty well. You'll see I'm parachuting in. The frame rate's quite good. No issues here. Let me just get down to the ground. Now I'm on the ground. You'll see the frame rate's pretty good. I've had no issues here. And it's super smooth and fast. Let's try something else. Now you'll see in this game, it's running pretty well. I did see a few frame rate drops. You may see them yourself here. But what's really impressive is, even though this is running, if I swap to a different game, for example, Call of Duty, it's still running. I can resume it, move around. It's running in the background. And the same is true for PUBG. So if we go into PUBG, everything's still running. It's handling all of this at once. I was eliminated, but you'll see it's still working fine. And it's really impressive that it's all running at once. And again, I can swap back and forth. Maybe we'll go back to this game here, resume, and we're back in. So it's running all of this. Now the phone is getting a little bit warm on the back, but overall this is a very impressive phone when it comes to playing games, and then also having this dual screen on the back that has a different setup that you have from your front screen. So you'll see I'm on the home screen here, swap around. If I go back into, say, this game, you can actually have a different home screen on this screen versus the other one, but it just depends what you're doing. So overall, it's kind of an interesting phone, but the way it handles games and its memory management is fantastic. Now, I noticed in apps like YouTube, you can watch HDR video. So if we go to this one, this is a really nice one from LG. So we'll say got it. Here's the resolution availability. So you'll see you can go all the way up to 1080p 60 in HDR on YouTube, maybe even higher with an update to 1440. But again, on a display of this size, you're really not going to see that resolution, but it's nice to have the options. But let me know what you think about the Nubia in the comments below. Have you used one of these phones? I did a review of the gaming phone they had a while ago. This Z20 is very similar, although it doesn't have a fan and it isn't designed for gaming. The other phone actually has some triggers up here. This one is just a dual screen phone that is a little bit different, and I would say is more for the people that want to take a lot more photo and video, because you have that rear facing camera system along with that rear facing screen. And then you've got those dual flashes there if you want to use those. So I love that idea for taking video of yourself or whatever you're trying to film and being able to see it all the time. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll try and link this wallpaper as well in the description. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.